What's up, players, guitar players? Alright, so this video hopefully is the first in a series of videos about this book, Eruption, Conversations with Eddie Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen is one of my favorite guitar players, and I credit him for making me want to play guitar. I was about 11 when the 1984 album came out, and when I heard that album, that's when I realized I had to get an electric guitar and start learning how to play. So I always credit Eddie for inspiring me to play, and he, to this day, he remains one of my favorite guitar players to listen to. I was in a used bookstore and I saw this, and I just thought I'd enjoy reading it. Of course, I miss Eddie now that he's no longer with us. And for anybody that would want to read this, you can buy the book if you would use my link down. No, I'm kidding. I didn't do that. Maybe you can find this at a used bookstore or just buy it anywhere. Or when I finish this, I'll probably want to sell it or give it to somebody. So, maybe you can buy it from me. But anyway, so my idea is to kind of summarize what I've read so far, and people might like it. If people like it, I'll do more videos like this. But I just I love getting into the minds of these people, reading biographies or just interviews, and this book seems to be a series of interviews with Eddie Van Halen. So it just seems like an absolute gold mine. So I'm early in the book, and it talks about when his family immigrated from Holland over to the United States in the early 60s. Eddie and Alex were both very young. Eddie's dad was a professional musician. He was a clarinet and a saxophone player in the Dutch Air Force, and his dad's name was Jan, and he was Dutch. His wife was Indonesian or half Indonesian, and there was a lot of racism at that time in Holland against people of Asian descent, and so there was a lot of racism against Eddie's mom, and then also because Eddie and Alex had some Asian descent in them, with their mom being half Asian. The parents were worried about the boys being discriminated against. So they felt the United States would offer better opportunity. So they immigrated over in the early 60s. They brought a piano with them over on the boat. I mean, they had like $50 to their name, the whole family. I mean, that was a lot more back in the 60s, of course, but still, even in today's money, that's probably not even $1,000. That's all the money they had to their name, and they brought a piano with them. Eddie's parents were intent on both of their sons being classically trained musicians, so it was very important for them to bring the piano. So somehow they lugged that with them. I think they landed in New York and made their way eventually to Pasadena with the piano. Eddie, and the book doesn't really emphasize this. It tells the story. It seems to kind of gloss over it, but I think it's a remarkable time in Eddie's life that just shows what a musical genius that he was. So him and Alex took piano lessons, but it says in the book that Eddie won 3 years in a row. He won a classical piano contest 3 consecutive years, and he says in the interviews that he never really learned how to read music really well. He would just watch his instructor's fingers and then use his ear to remember the melody. And then when he would play the piece, and he played a lot of Mozart when he was in these recitals and taking lessons, so he would just play from memory. And then when he would win these contests, and these were contests with hundreds of kids, not just in Pasadena, but throughout the whole LA area. And he won 3 years in a row as a youth. And I mean, that's just amazing. And he remembers that the judges would make comments like, "Oh, that was an interesting interpretation of Mozart." And Eddie would hear that and think, "Oh, I didn't play it right because the judge said interpretation." And then, but as he got older, he realized that that's what being musical was. And he makes a comment that there's a lot of players out there that will copy another person's piece of music. He mentions Segovia, I hope I'm saying that name right, the classical guitarist, that a lot of people will copy his work, for example, but Segovia himself was just doing an interpretation. So Eddie really emphasizes how that was very influential on him as a young musician, that I think by winning those contests and getting those comments from the judges, he just realized, hey, it's okay to not learn these pieces of music note for note and then play them exactly how the composer wrote them, that you can have a musical liberty and artistic license to interpret these and put your own personality. And I talk about that in my videos all the time, about how I think every guitar player has to find their voice and put their personality into their music. Anyway, moving on. So I thought that was a really cool cool story early in Eddie's life. Another thing that I really thought was cool is when he stopped playing piano when he was, I forget what age, maybe right around a teenager, or probably before that, like 10 years old maybe. And his mom wasn't thrilled about that. And he actually started playing drums first. He had a paper route, I think, and he bought a drum set, but he was gone a lot, like working, and so Alex was playing the drums a lot, and he got good at the drums. And then Eddie realized, he could play guitar, and he fell in love with the guitar. And so when he got serious about the guitar, he didn't want to take guitar lessons. He figured, hey, I had piano, I had a very strict, he had a Russian piano teacher who was very strict in teaching the theory and all that stuff. So he knew the music theory, and he knew he had a good ear. But his piano teacher was very strict in telling him how to play the piano. And when Eddie picked up the guitar, he was very intentional. Even as a young child, he was very deliberate in thinking, okay, I don't want somebody telling me how to play this thing. I want to just sit in my room and figure it out myself and figure out how I'm going to play the guitar. So I think that's very cool, and really probably developed his sound, at least the foundation, the beginnings of it. So great stuff. Okay, so jumping ahead into the later years of the David Lee Roth era, and this book does it's going to do a lot of jumping ahead and jumping back. It's just a series of interviews. So later, if I do another video like this, I may cover more stuff about Eddie's childhood. But early in the book, there's an interview where they're talking about their first success with like MTV and music videos. So I was about 11 when 1984 came out, and the video Jump that song was a hit, and that video played on MTV all the time. I didn't realize this, but when MTV started, their first music video that they did for MTV was Pretty Woman on the Fair Warning album. And that video actually got banned from MTV. It got canceled. And, you know, it talks about that video here in the book. But it's a bizarre video. Each member of the band dresses up as a character, and there's a transsexual model who's tied up, and there's two little people like fondling this trans throughout the whole video, right? So it got banned. That video got banned. It's a very bizarre video. I went and searched it on YouTube and watched it. You can do that too. I wasn't aware of it, surprisingly, but it's an odd video. And even back in the early 80s, before cancel culture was like a thing, like that video got banned. So maybe Van Halen was like the first group to get banned or to get canceled. And in fact, I think that was the first video to get banned by MTV. So the next big video that they did was Jump. And I really like what the book talks about when they did that video, because it pointed something out that I never really thought about, but since the book pointed it out, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. And it hit me like how true this is. You know, I was always one thing I've always liked about watching Eddie play is he's just having so much fun when he plays live. He's usually got a big smile on his face, and he's so animated when he's playing. So when they were making the Jump video, I think David Lee Roth wanted to do another artsy video like Pretty Woman, but the producers were insistent on just having the video being just about the band playing. And they were very certain that they wanted to get a shot of Eddie smiling in the video while he's playing the guitar. And I remember that video quite well. There's at least one, if not more, shots of Eddie with that big grin on his face while he's playing licks and playing a solo. And what the book points out that I thought was really cool is that really distinguished Eddie Van Halen from his contemporaries of his day, because all the other guitar players and the ones that came up before him, like Hendrix and Jimmy Page, they would play, and of course they were enjoying it, but when they played, it was like they had this anguish on their face, or like the heavier players had like a scowl with their heavy metal stuff, to where, you know, Eddie just had this big grin on his face. And when you think about it, no other guitar player did that. You know, maybe Keith Richards comes to mind. Like I see the Rolling Stones and I'll see Keith Richards and he'll have like a smile on his face, but it's not a common thing. And so that was very distinguishing for Van Halen and Eddie. And the producers of the Jump video were very intentional about getting that shot of him smiling in the video. That was no accident. That was all planned. But also the truth is, behind that smile was a very tough upbringing. When his family came to the U.S., he and his brother could barely speak English, and they felt like outsiders. Eddie was a shy kid. He got picked on a lot, and that's part of the reason, or that's why him and his brother formed such a tight bond that just stayed there throughout their whole lives. Because when they came here as immigrants with very little to their name, they had to stick together as a family. I mean, they came here with $50 and a piano, and their father, being a professional musician, had to do like janitorial work to make enough money to support the family. So he had a very tough go at it growing up in Pasadena, but he had opportunity, and that toughness that he had to endure helped solidify the bond with his brother, or is the reason why he had that bonds. They just became so close as a family unit. But nonetheless, his joy of just playing the guitar just seemed to outshine everything. And you know, you really see it in that Jump video, which for me was like the first video of Van Halen that I just saw all the time, because it was on that 1984 album, and that was one of the first rock records, like hard rock records, that I had as a kid. I had the cassette tape of it. Actually, a friend of mine in the neighborhood, like his brother, had the album and burned a copy of it for me on a cassette tape. That's what a lot of people did, like in the 80s. And so I had the cassette tape, and I just listened to that album all the time. It's the coolest thing ever. So anyway, I'm going to end it here for now. Please like this if you want to see more videos like this. I mean, I just started this book, so there's a lot of more conversations with Eddie here. So there's going to be some cool stuff throughout his career. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys. Please like and subscribe. I appreciate you. Keep playing, keep picking, man. Enjoy life.